Geekom's flagship, AMD Mini PC. Shiny. First impressions are often telling, but not always, which is why we pitch these minis against the competition. The Geekom A7 has a beautiful anodized aluminium alloy case, which oozes premium feels. Its styling is definitely inspired by a Mac Mini, even this older generation one I have lying around. Geekom is pitching the A7 against the Mac Mini M2 Pro as the best mini PC under $2,000, and the A7 comes in at less than half that price with some very beefy specs. Of course, if you absolutely have to have Mac OS, then there is no Mac killer. But if you're okay with Windows or Linux, there are options. Included with the A7 is AMD's 7th generation flagship R9 7940HS, which is an 8-core, 16-thread CPU with Radeon 7080M graphics, 32GB of DDR5 5600, along with a 2TB NVMe SSD for $764 US on their website or Amazon. But as sometimes happens with the review units, an extra coupon is provided for my viewers, taking another $20 US off the price to $744. UK and Australian stores also get a coupon in the video description. Okay, there's a lot to get through with this one, so let's jump into it right after this message. Are you looking for a way to safely and quickly transfer files and apps to a new PC? Well, say hello to EaseUs2Do PC Trans, a simple to use app that can help you transfer programs from one PC to another or create a full backup of your computer. Try it for free with a link in the video description. One big improvement with the Geekom A7 is the 120 watt power supply. The size of it has been shrunk right down to a very reasonable size. Looks like that GaN tech is slowly filtering through. Not that large power supplies are a huge deal for minis that are in the home or office, but having a power supply bigger than the mini, well, isn't a great look. Also included is a manual, HDMI cord, and thank you card. So this is one of the rare few minis that doesn't support VESA mounting. The front has two USB 3 10GB, with one being a charging port made popular by Intel NUCs. There's also an audio jack and power button. It's cool to see an SD card reader on the side. It's powered by a 19-volt barrel jack. The USB 4 port doesn't support power delivery. There's another 10GB USB-C with display out, along with dual HDMI 2.0, a USB 3 10GB, USB 2, and Realtek 2.5GB LAN. You can have 4 displays on this one with the USB-C ports and HDMI combination. Windows 11 Pro is included on this mini, and the OS came up clean when I scanned it. My quick and dirty Ubuntu test off a USB mostly worked. Wireless and Bluetooth did not, but wired internet is okay. Opening the A7 has some quirks. The rubber feet are glued on, even though they also slot in. I don't think the glue is necessary. Anyway, underneath each one is a screw. Next up is a metal plate with 4 more screws. One of the Wi-Fi cables is attached to the bottom plate with sticky tape, which I missed. You need to remove the tape to give it some slack, otherwise at best it'll pop off the pigtail cable like it did for me, and at worst cause some damage to the Wi-Fi cable or card. Oh yes, I know from experience. Well, that's interesting, an Acer branded NVMe SSD. Underneath it is the MediaTek Wi-Fi 6E card Ubuntu didn't like. Okay, so a couple of other observations. No additional storage slots are included, and the RAM doesn't have a fan cooling it. Other minis have shown this might be a problem. Alright, I'll just fix the Wi-Fi cable, close her up, and she'll be good as new, mate. Geekom's A7 is pretty close with the other 7940HS minis I reviewed in single core. It came back with a score less than 2% behind the best one. Multicore shows the mini performing similarly to the Simply NUC Moonstone, which was at 45 watts. There's a performance mode in the BIOS of the A7 which adds just over 1% to the score, but it thermal throttles pretty hard. The Raytan Alloy 9 is still the king of the hill whichever power mode it uses. As a comparison, there's an 11% decrease at default performance levels for the A7. And it's a similar story in video encoding, except the A7 managed to take the second spot over Moonstone. The DX11 graphics benchmark shows very little difference between the top 2 performers, and same with the DX12 benchmark. Acer's Gen 4 storage drive is an okay performer. Nothing exceptional and still far off saturating the Gen 4 spec in sequential reads and writes. Alright, so all those benchmarks help a lot in determining the A7's cooling and overall performance, but doesn't cover certain scenarios. That's why I also throw in gaming tests. Let me show you an example. For gaming, I test at the maximum performance for the best result, and after some testing with the performance mode, well, this happened. Tekken 8 at 1080p low with FSR2 upscaling gets to 60 frames per second, but after a while, the frame rate completely tanks. The CPU is at 100C and the memory goes above 80C. So I tried again with the default mode in the BIOS, and after playing for 30 minutes, it held up fine. I also managed to get through my other tests okay. But something to keep in mind is that for longer gaming sessions and higher ambient temperatures, the same thermal throttling might happen. And to me, it looks like it's the memory doing it. So the rest of the game tests are done using the default mode in the BIOS. Something different I wanted to try this time is testing at both 1080p and 1440p resolutions to push the Radeon 780M and see what it can do. Tekken 8 ties the frame rate to the game speed, so anything that isn't 60 FPS is in full speed. And reducing from the quality mode to a lower preset might get you to 60 FPS at 1440p. Valorant at 1080p holds above 200 FPS, while 1440p drops below.
I'm out of here. Blinded. That's 3.
Not a massive drop in Dota 2 for the higher resolution, around 30 to 40 FPS. There's a much bigger difference with Counter-Strike 2, sometimes doubling the frame rate. Another large difference is with League of Legends, from over 300 FPS at 1080p to under 200 at 1440p. It's not as big a drop with GTA 5, although it's still not a solid 60 FPS at 1080p. Forza Horizon 5 holds up pretty well at 1440p. And Robocop isn't great at either resolution with FSR2 balance mode. I guess if you're okay with console frame rates, you could play it at 1440p. With Wii emulation, there's over a 20% drop in frame rate by going higher resolution. And the same with this PS3 game. Forza Horizon was unplayable at 1440p with the Xbox 360 emulator. Of course, a 40 gigabit USB 4 port means you can use an eGPU if you need more graphics power. Here I'm playing a game at 4K with my Razer Core X running an RTX 3070 graphics card. The Ryzen 7 940HS works well with 4K video editing. Even though there's no hardware decoding like with Intel CPUs, the 7940HS has enough CPU power to handle my 4K video project without too much trouble. I'd still recommend an Intel Mini if your main usage case is video editing. It's better supported by video editing software like Adobe Premiere and doesn't need as powerful a CPU as this one to decode video. One other thing I have to point out about Geekom's A7, which I noticed during the review, is that proper sleep mode doesn't work. And by proper sleep mode, I mean S3 suspend to RAM, which basically shuts off the unit but keeps the current state in memory. The A7 stays powered on during sleep mode as if it's in idle mode. All it does is bring up the Windows lock screen. I had a look, but I couldn't find an S3 suspend to RAM option in the BIOS. Like other Geekom minis I've reviewed, most options are hidden. AC loss control and wake on LAN are available, and that's about it. Idle power draw is nice and low on the Geekom A7 at only 8 watts. Maximum depends on the power mode, but it did use more power than the other 7940HS minis. Maximum CPU temp again depends on the power mode, but you should definitely use this one at normal instead of performance. The A7 is a pretty quiet mini PC compared to the competition. At its maximum, it doesn't get very loud at all, but I would have preferred more noise and lower temps. The cooling solution for the Acer SSD, which connects it to the bottom plastic plate with a thermal pad, worked fine. I have no problem with these temps. So what I like about the Geekom A7 is its metal case and Apple-like design. The new smaller power supply is awesome. Geekom offers a 3-year warranty compared to others, which usually offer just 1. An SD card slot is always welcome and rarely seen. For a high-powered mini PC this size, it's one of the quieter units out there. But there's no cooling for the RAM, which can thermal throttle under certain circumstances, like long gaming sessions or hot days. There's no monitor mount if you're keen on those. Sleep mode doesn't work properly. Maybe this can be fixed with a BIOS update. There's no additional storage slot, but at least with a 2TB SSD, most will find that to be plenty of storage. So that's the Geekom A7 mini PC. A lot of work went into testing this one, and if you're interested in it, links and coupons can be found in the video description. Or if you prefer an Intel option, I have done a comparison of Intel's best mobile CPU offerings in Geekom's minis right here. Cheers!